On Friday's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Flip and Steele, we are analyzing Alex Ovechkin's value from a fantasy perspective while also taking a deep look at Friday's 5-game betting and DFS boards.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody, and thank you so much for riding with us again for another full week of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We appreciate all the love, and we appreciate you making us your first listen every single day. You know where to find us across all platforms you find your favorite content. We are there. Holler at us with a subscribe, smash the button, show us some love with a follow. We really appreciate all the love. You've heard it before. You'll hear it again. Thank you for being here for episode number 32 of the reboot of this show. It's a Friday special. Steele and I are feeling it. We have a 5-game betting and DFS board to dive into. That is coming up around the break. You know you can count on us for some locks of the night. Steele is back in a big way in the win column. Stay tuned for those. But on the heels of tying a very significant record, Steele, for the third most goals of all time in some very, very elite company, we have to talk about Alex Ovechkin, talk about his career, and of course, break down his overall fantasy value, good sir.
Yeah, Alex Ovechkin, the greatest goal scorer to ever play in the NHL. And absolutely fantastic to watch him every single time he hits the ice. For me, I believe Alex Ovechkin is the best player, the best fantasy player to have on your fantasy team. Or, if not the best, definitely top 3 if you're talking with Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid as well. But for me personally, I believe Alex Ovechkin is the best player to have on your fantasy team. He brings everything that you need one of your star players to bring to your fantasy team. He gets goals. He's starting to get a lot more assists. He's always first in shots. He has a ton of hits as well. And then, not so much blocks, but everything else he does so great with. And for that reason, I think he's the best player to have on a fantasy team. And that's why I have him on mine, actually.
Must be nice. And I like that you started off this show with 2 scorching hot takes. First of all, greatest goal scorer of all time. I am here for this debate because there's a lot of older people out there still going, have you forgot about number 99, Wayne Gretzky? But I tend to actually side with you because I'm biased. I didn't get to watch Wayne Gretzky play. I was grateful and, privileged enough to see Ovi play live once or twice. And, I'm here for this debate. And I think the book is still out. His career is not over. And if he continue, 35 and 36 goals the other night to tie him with Jágr, he is, let me get this right here. He is 36 years old, and I believe he is about 30 or so goals back of Gordie Howe for second all time. I don't know if he's going to get to that top number still, but this is just straight up impressive. And as someone who is my age, growing up watching Sid and Ovi and growing up watching them from their very first season, I still remember that commercial where Ovi orders all the food and he puts his name down, Sidney Crosby. So this guy is someone that turns the page for a lot of fans. He's face of the NHL. When he won that cup that year and he was drinking out of the fountain and doing all that stuff, like, you just love to see it. But you mentioned it, still a top fantasy producer that I think with the aging core going on in Washington, you have to keep your eye on down the stretch here as someone who's super valuable and someone you might want to acquire if possible, if you really want to pay that premium price.
Look, I think he is the greatest goal scorer to ever play in the NHL, and I think he will, get up to Wayne Gretzky's record as well.
Wow.
Look, there's 25, 30 games left in the season. He's still got 15 to 20 goals left in him for this season. He's only 36 years old, like you mentioned. He's probably got another 3 or 4 years left for his NHL career if he wants to beat Wayne Gretzky, which I know he probably does.
Oh, yeah.
And just looking at what he's been able to accomplish this year, before the season even started, he was pre-ranked at number 12 for fantasy drafts. As of right now, he currently sits at number 1 with 739 fantasy points on the season, just 3 ahead of Austin Matthews, who just had that hat trick the other night. Like I mentioned, 36 goals, 34 assists, 21 points on the special teams, 253 shots, 103 hits. He's 36 years old and he's playing like he's 26 right now. Like, it's absolutely incredible to watch him step on the ice and play the way he does for the Washington Capitals. Flip, I want to ask you a question, and just real
Please
quick.
do. Please do.
He's played in the NHL for 17 seasons now. How many games do you think he's missed?
I don't know. It can't be many, because one of these points here, I was going to say he's played in all 57 games this season. So hit
Yeah.
me with a staggering stat, because his durability is, unreal.
17 seasons in the NHL. He's missed 44 games. That's it. 44 games.
I think when you see someone play the game like Ovechkin does, full tilt, sure, his age, he doesn't maybe play with the same edge that he does, but that's not because he's not trying to. That is an even more impressive number, Steele, because that guy crunches people still at this age. It's not like he plays on the peripheral of the game. He's right in the mix. So that is a very seriously impressive stat.
And that's why it's amazing. And that's why I think he's the best fantasy player to have on your team, because he's reliable. He's durable.
Great point.
He gets goals. He's a playmaker. He's a wrecking ball out there on the ice. And we already know how great he is on the power play. He brings all of these factors come into fantasy. And that's why I believe he is the best player for fantasy teams. And one of the, looking at the pre-ranks, he was ranked number 12. I took him for my fantasy draft at number 6.
Nice.
And luckily I was able to get him at number 6, because he is the best player to have in your fantasy team.
The durability can't be denied. And that's something, like you said, really great point about your fantasy lineup, because, you could have the best draft of all time and really be sitting there going, oh, I got this year. And then your main guys go down because of whatever injury reasons. And Ovi's not one of those guys. You can count on him. And I'll say this. I showed some love to Patrick Kane the other day, and I got to do it for Ovi because it's even more impressive. 9-time Rocket Richard winner, 3-time Hart Trophy winner, Calder, Conn Smythe, 12 all-star appearances. And, I have it right here, Steele, arguably the greatest goal scorer of all time. And I think it's a very interesting conversation because I think, knowing what I know about Gretzky in a very limited capacity, two very different players, right? Two very different styles. So maybe there is something to be said that they're maybe right there at 1A and 1B, and they literally statistically will. And I'll leave it at this from my side of things with Ovi. The window for winning is closing in Washington. Yeah. We've talked about this. We've talked about, so Kuznetsov 29, Oshie 35, Backstrom 34, Carlson 32. A lot of money tied up in these players as well. So the ability to augment with young players with the cap space that they do have, I think is going to be tricky. So that's one thing to be said, but I'll leave it at this. Either way, with how good Alex Ovechkin has, if you have him, you're sitting pretty in fantasy, because you can either just continue to ride him because he's been great, or, and you've mentioned this before, get back a boatload of prospects and young NHL players. It depends what format you're in. If you're in a dynasty and you need that little bop of you know what I'm saying, Steele? You're sitting pretty either way, and that's just how good Alex Ovechkin has been.
Yeah, and I continue to say this through this first 8 minutes of the podcast of this episode. I still think that he is the best player to have in your fantasy team. Just as of right now, he is, and maybe for one more year as well. But like you just mentioned, the time is running out for some of these Washington Capitals players, to be very productive, to win another Stanley Cup. And that's to say, Alex Ovechkin's in the same boat. As of right now, he is the best, and probably next year he will be the best again. But time's running out for him, so you got to use him while you can, or get him while you can.
Most definitely, and health is going to be a key factor for him as he continues to push the pace toward Gretzky's insane number of 894 total goals. What's also a number you want to pay attention to, it's 100, the 100% real chocolate in Built Bars. Low calorie, high protein. I've said it weekly. Replace your candy bars with these. They are better. I'm back at the gym. I'm hammering some Built Bars. I'm not getting swole, but I'm feeling healthy, and that's all that matters. Go to Built.com, scroll down the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low cal, high fiber, low carb. I'm not going to sell you on any more because you know how fire these are. When you compare those numbers to the doo-doo candy bars, it's almost double the calories for the candy bars, 30 grams of sugar and dozens of net carbs. You don't want that, but what you do want is all the delicious flavors that they have at Built. Check it out, Built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off. I'll say it one more time. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off.
Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. For your next listen, you have to go check out Locked On Now, nightly recaps of every NHL game. You don't want to miss the highlights. It's awesome. I watch it and listen to it every night. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast, just like this podcast right here. So please make sure you subscribe and follow the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, as well as our Twitter at Locked On Fantasy Hockey Show. We appreciate the love and support out there so much. So thank you for that. Friday, 4-game schedule. Not a lot to talk about compared to what we did for Thursday's nights of games. But still some juicy matchups in this situation. The first one I was looking at, the Winnipeg Jets versus the New York Islanders. This is the second game of a back-to-back for the Winnipeg Jets on the road. They could because they played the New Jersey Devils Thursday night. I like the Jets in this situation, even though it is a second game of a back-to-back.
Me too.
Pierre-Luc Dubois, Kyle Connor, those guys on the second line have been absolutely producing for the Jets, even though they've been very inconsistent. I like Dubois and I like Kyle Connor. Both of these guys have had 9 points in their last 6 games. Yes. And then even for this, Evgeny Svechnikov, who's playing on that second line with them as well, he's going to be cheap. He's going to be around $2,500. He's got 6 points in his last 6 games as well. So that second line for the Winnipeg Jets, I'm looking at them. Of course, with Dubois and Connor, you're probably going to be looking upwards of $5,500 for $6,000 to $6,000 as well.
We talk all the time about value. We talk all the time about having to pay the premium for guys who are red hot. And sometimes I think it's just worth it, because when you look at a guy like Kyle Connor, this dude is feeling it right now. We know that the Winnipeg Jets have been a bit of an enigma. We don't really know what's going on off the ice there. Coaches stepping down. There's some weird, I said it doesn't smell right in Winnipeg, and it really doesn't. They're actually still in the mix for a playoff spot, believe it or not. That last wild card spot, they're only 7 points out still. Yeah. And there's a lot of hockey to be played, and there's not too many great teams ahead of them. So I will say this when it comes to Kyle Connor, been red hot, and the value for yourself or the budget might not be there, but paying the premium for a guy who's been this red hot, I think is the move here.
Yeah, I think so too. And in the Winnipeg Jets last 5 games, they're 3-1-1. They've scored a ton of goals. They beat the Montreal Canadiens 8-4 the other day. Right. They beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. I believe it was 7-4 or 7-3. I believe in that game as
7-4,
well.
a big win.
Yeah, a big win. So they're scoring a ton of goals. They're getting some big W's this last week, and all because Mark Scheifele is still their best player. He's been absolutely great for the Winnipeg Jets, but Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor on that second line have really found a great connection, as well as Evgeny Svechnikov, since he's joined up in the lineup as well. 6 points in his last 6 games, like I mentioned. Yep. I like the value going into this New York Islanders matchup, because we know the New York Islanders have just been very, very disappointing this year. We don't like the Winnipeg Jets, like you said. It doesn't smell right in New York for the New York Islanders. So both of these teams, very weird to kind of understand what's happened with them this season. But I like the Winnipeg Jets in this situation more than the New York Islanders.
Most definitely. I think that's the way that you have to go here. New York, it can be a tough team to play against. That used to be their MO, but they've struggled at times this year. And if it was not for Sorokin, I think they're probably in a much tougher spot, because regardless of him not getting the greatest play in front of him from his team, he's been pretty solid. We've talked about the Russian goalies at length, so I'm not going to go there. Where I will head, though, Steele, is to another Canadian team who have been rolling offensively. And we talked a little bit about JT Miller. That was my pick of one of my picks last night. That banged in a big way. I think he had 4 points. Vancouver's clicking right now offensively and playing some pretty good hockey overall. Defense, not so much, but they are basically in some shootout type games. And I think when this is happening and you're seeing the confidence in the group, again, you're going to pay a premium for JT Miller, but right now you cannot go wrong. So take a look at those top guys. You mentioned Bo Horvat being slotted down the lineup. He's starting to pick it up a little bit. So maybe because he has been moved around the lineup, you could get him at some value still. But I don't know what you think about my overall angle here with the Vancouver Canucks. I don't know who's going to win this game, but overall outcome. But I do see this as a high scoring one, and one that you can definitely find some DFS value.
Yeah, I see this as a high-scoring game as well. I think the Vancouver Canucks will probably take this one. I am very, on the fence of how I feel about the Washington
Me
Capitals
too.
goalie situation. Samsonov and Vanacek have just, I don't know. I just don't think they've really found that true starting number one goalie for the Capitals. Trying to live up to Braden Holtby after that cup, after they won the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago. So it's very hard for those goalies to live up, fill those shoes. And I'm not really sure how I feel about it, but I do like the over. It's going to be a high scoring game. We know how, like you mentioned, Vancouver's been clicking. Washington still has some star power. TJ Oshie was phenomenal the last week, and Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, all these guys. That's not the game that wasn't the second game I was looking at. The second matchup I really want to focus on, and I'm going to get into a lot of details here, is the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the Vegas Golden Knights. It's the game I really want to discuss about. The Penguins are 5-4-1 in their last 10 games, while the Golden Knights are 4-5-1 in their last 10. So very, similar records in the last 10 games for these two teams. But the Penguins have had they've had a much tougher schedule this last 2 weeks. They've played the Lightning, they've played the Hurricanes, they've played the Panthers, they've played the Rangers. A very tough. I know there's only 4 teams, but this is what their schedule has been like the last 2 weeks. While the Golden Knights have played the Flyers, which they lost to, the Senators, which they won 2-1. They beat the Sharks, they played the Sharks, and they've also played the Arizona Coyotes. So when you compare those two types of schedules, and the Vegas Golden Knights have a worse record, it shows to how bad they've played without guys like Mark Stone and some of the other guys that are on their IR. I like the Pittsburgh Penguins in this situation. In the last 7 games, Vegas is averaging just 2 goals. They're not scoring a lot right now. I mentioned this in yesterday's episode. They're not scoring a ton of goals since Mark Stone's been out of the lineup. This is where, and I don't really focus on the Pittsburgh Penguins a lot because I think you do a great job of that.
Thank you.
This is where I would take Sidney Crosby, Brian Rust, and Jake Gensel. I don't think you'll be able to get all 3. So no matter what, I'm going with Sidney Crosby. Choose between Brian Rust or Jake Gensel, whichever you want to choose, because those are the only guys that are actually scoring for the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. Like besides Evgeny Malkin, the whole entire rest of the team are not putting points up offensively, and they're not helping. They haven't helped the Penguins to win any of those games in the last 10 games. So Crosby and Jake Gensel for me. I'm also going to toss Tristan Jarry in there because he's the second best goalie in the league right now behind Shesterkin, and the Vegas Golden Knights have just not been scoring the last 2 weeks. So I'm going with the Pittsburgh Penguins, top 3 guys as well as Tristan Jarry.
I was just going to say that the Vegas Golden Knights are 4-6 over their last 10 games, but those 4 wins came against San Jose twice and the Ottawa Senators. So they beat one good team in the last 10 games. They don't look good offensively aside from really Eichel, who's not getting a ton of help. So I think Tristan Jarry is definitely the move. And, you spoke about it, and I was going to speak about it in a couple of seconds. So thanks a lot for stealing my clout, but that's okay. The Penguins are coming off 2 losses.
Yeah.
But those teams, Carolina and Florida. So, and they were 1 goal close games. So, we just talked about a closing window. You can see how great Sid and Malkin have been. They thankfully have Jarry as well, holding them down. So I think Jarry for sure. But I know those second line guys haven't been scoring, the Jeff Carters, the Danton Heinens. But I think this is a great spot to beat up on the Vegas Golden Knights, who will also be on the second half of a back-to-back, which is never a great situation, especially on an Eastern road swing for a West Coast team.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, I think we both just hit it on the nail right there. It's just a very tough situation for the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yep.
Obviously we've talked about this trade a lot on this podcast, because it was one of the biggest trades we've seen in the last, couple of years, but they really have hurt themselves with this cap issue. And we're kind of seeing it right now with all the guys they have on the IR. Like, I get that they're injured, but there's a lot of guys on the IR and they have not been able to, significantly move money around where they, once they're able to come back, that they,
Golden Knights,
the Golden Knights have been very, it's definitely been a struggle for them with the cap space. So we'll look forward to see what they're doing in the next couple of weeks before, in the next week before trade deadline, or even leading up to the playoffs, what might happen. But we're looking forward to big time bets. Where you can place your bets is BetOnline. Football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for tuning in to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast and making it your first listen every day. Please smash that subscribe, smash that follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love and support out there. So thank you so much for supporting us, on our new journey, a month and a half into our, podcast here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Network.
Thank you.
We got to get into big time bets here. 4 games on the schedule. I usually connect my DFS selections to my big time bets. I'm keeping it very simple for Friday with my bets.
Okay.
So I'll throw it over to you for your first one.
Let's hear it. And first of all, I keep saying 5 games, and I said it off the jump. So now I have to check because my math skills are clearly not good. Oh, wait, it is 4 games. Holy guys, stay with us.
You gotta clean those glasses, Flip. You gotta clean those glasses.
It's clean the glasses. I gotta maybe drink a little bit more water. I'm a little bit dehydrated. Maybe I need some athletic greens or something. But hey, look, I teased a couple of my picks here, so I'm gonna keep this real simple. You guys know where I'm headed here. We talked about Kyle Connor. We talked about the Jets putting up a lot of goals, and we talked about the New York Islanders not having a great season. I like all of these angles for Kyle Connor. 34 goals and 30 assists for 64 points. The 25-year-old Michigan native has been red hot. They came off a big 7-4 win for the Jets. That's arguably their biggest win of the season against a really good Rangers team earlier this week. Everything is pointing in the direction of another big game for their offense. I like Connor, who just had a goal and an assist against those Rangers. Kyle Connor, anytime goal scorer steal for my first pick of the night. I've been hitting hard on the apples, on the assists. Give me some juice. Give me a bigger odd for Kyle Connor, anytime goal scorer. I think the Jets go on a little mini run here to then leave their fans in the lurch and miss the playoffs completely. That's my prediction.
I like the pick. I went the other way with Kyle Connor. I went with Kyle Connor anytime assist, like you mentioned with those stats. He's been absolutely great for the Winnipeg Jets, probably the second best player behind Mark Scheifele, who's having another terrific season. So I have Kyle Connor anytime assists for my lock of the night, actually. Along with the Winnipeg Jets money line. Nice. I said I was going to keep it simple. So the Jets on the money line, that's what I'm going to go with as well.
Hey, man, it's funny because, we joke a lot about, saying the same things and stealing notes. Like this time, again, we did not talk at all, and we were basically right on the same page. So hopefully for all those listeners out there, you can take the hint and ride this. And hopefully it pans out. Fingers crossed for us here. My next pick steal, and you know how I like me some recent trends. I like me some numbers. So I'm going to just keep it simple here and throw a couple at you. We just talked about the Washington Capitals having some struggles in their net. No one can really take it fully. Vanacek, maybe you lean that way, barely. But they've been letting in a lot of goals. And this game, Washington Capitals, Vancouver Canucks, is screaming over to me. The number is sitting at 6. We talked about numbers being higher. Here we go. The total has gone over the number in 5 of Washington's last 6 trips to Washington. The total has gone over the number in 4 of Washington's last 5 games overall. And the total has gone over the number in 9 straight games for the Vancouver Canucks. That's not something I'm going to bet against, good sir.
Yeah.
Ever. That's not how you should do things, in my opinion. But hey, go out there and get crazy and bet the under if you'd like. Until I see something from either of these goalies, I'm going to continue to take the over. Take the over in the Vancouver-Washington game, over 6 at plus 105 right now. I think that's free money.
Hey, I like that too. You're a trend. You like the trends. You're a trendsetter yourself, and we'll see what happens. I will probably sprinkle some dough on the over as well in that matchup between the Canucks and Capitals. My last pick of the night, it's, I'm going to keep it simple, and that's what I'm doing. It's going to be the Penguins on the money line against the Golden Knights. everything that I said, for my DFS selections, it is facts. It's true. The Golden Knights have not been scoring a ton of goals. Tristan Jarry, second best goalie in the league right now. That top line for the Pittsburgh Penguins, along with Evgeny Malkin, who centers the second line. Those are the top 4 guys that have been producing, and they're winning games with those guys producing. So I like the situation for the Penguins at home. Penguins on the money line, Jets on the money line. My lock of the night is Kyle Connor, anytime assist. Flip, what is your lock of the night?
You're going to like it, and I'm keeping it simple too. And literally, we've talked about basically every angle and point why I like this team in this spot. Penguins at home on the money line, -135. That's my lock of the night. It's too good of a situation for the Penguins. I said it. Vegas on the second night of a back-to-back in what will be an emotional game last night against the Buffalo Sabres for Jack Eichel. Likely it was probably Laurent Brossoit against them. So you'll have Leonard in there tonight. Yeah. So that's one thing most likely. But I still love this spot for Pittsburgh to bounce back big from 2 really tough 1-game losses against the 2 best teams in the East, arguably, in Carolina and Florida. And they could have won both of those games. Sid and Malkin can feel the gap closing for their chance to win. I've said it multiple times, and I really do think that they will not miss many opportunities in these opportunistic situations like tonight against a Vegas Golden Knights team who is ripe for the picking. The Pens also won the only game featuring these 2 teams earlier in the season in convincing fashion. It was a 5-3 victory, but it could have easily been higher. Penguins, big bounce back spot, big flips, lock of the night, -135 on the money line.
I like it. We're very similar for these Friday picks. With Kyle Connor, you're taking him anytime goal. My lock of the night is Kyle Connor anytime assist. Guys, pencil it in, lock it in, put your money down for especially for what Flip's saying, because his lock of the nights have been hitting absolutely incredibly this last couple of weeks. We're both rolling with our overall records right now. So pencil it in, lock it in, put some dough on Kyle Connor for a goal and an assist. It's going to come to fruition.
I like it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, making it your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice on what you should pick, but for not just hockey, make sure your second listen is Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, it's hosted by your boy Q with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all podcast platforms, just like this podcast right here. So help Flip and I out. Hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. We appreciate all the love out there, all the love and support out there. So thank you so much for all of that. And once you follow and subscribe to the podcast, you'll get the latest episodes of Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast as soon as they're available each and every day, Monday to Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. So hit the subscribe. You'll get the latest episodes. And thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Good luck with all your bets. And we shall see you back here again on Monday.
Peace.